to the International 2015. We are the group stages. This is game number 2 between Team Secret and Team FNATIC. I'm giving us a full recap because we did have a bit of a break here between game 1 and game 2. A little bit of network issues, but we're back up now. Of course, myself, Capitalist, joined by Blitz. Blitz, game 1, you want to give us a little recap on how that went for anybody who's just now joining us?
Sure. For the majority of the game, Team Secret were up 7-5, which I think is a little bit deceptive, but they ended up being ahead by like 10k gold. They just consistently outfarmed Team FNATIC, and it was a pretty dominant performance by Secret, but FNATIC did show us some pretty interesting new stuff. The way that they built their heroes, the skill builds, I thought were at least a welcome change to the norm that we normally see.
Yeah, I think that I don't want to like shut down FNATIC too much because they do have some very talented players on their team. I mean, this team is full of like old school legends, and it's just unfortunate seeing them now be in a position where I just don't think they can take Team Secret in just a straight up regular game. So I do think that they need to do some interesting decisions like what they chose in game number 1. They need to try and, I think, be a little bit more focused in their strategy, such as, I mean, they didn't really act on it necessarily, maybe because they didn't see the openings, but we kind of agreed that it felt like they were focusing their strategy very much on, you know, being able to win, you know, this one area of the game. In this case, it was kind of like the 15-minute fights, right? I feel like they need to do something like that. They need to do something targeted in order to get through Team Secret's defense because, as we can see, especially from that game 1, just left to kind of an even game, Team Secret are naturally just going to outplay FNATIC, and you can see from just no action happening, them being able to get a 5,000 gold lead every 7 or 8 minutes, just kind of showed that Team Secret were always in control of the game.
Yeah, I actually think Mushi just has to cut loose, and I think he's one of those players that Secret actually did a really good job of neutralizing. Like, they put him in a matchup where it was Wind Ranger against a Viper. Wind Ranger can't really win that matchup, and that's what we saw. Like, even with the help of Johnny rotating over, he wasn't really able to do anything, and I think that was Secret's plan from the get-go. Pick a hero like Viper, frustrate Mushi, just slow him down as much as we can, because in my opinion, I think that Mushi is one of the, I'd say like 10 or so players that, if you have to consider like, actual sports, he's kind of like that superstar that you want, that can single-handedly turn your fortunes and just win a game by his performance, right?
Yep.
So they did, Secret, I feel like the game plan was just to neutralize that as much as possible, and they did a good job. But going over the picks and bans, we see Shadow Fiend ban, this time by Secret. I feel like that's just an obvious ban. If you're Dire, you ban SF, like regardless of what position you're in, because Radiant side, Shadow Fiend is just too strong.
Right.
Like, we saw it last game, we see it this game. And on the flip side, FNATIC, they go with, this time they banned the Dazzle again, right? And they banned the Leshrac, and I think that the Leshrac is an obvious ban for a team that has first pick. And I think the Dazzle is just one of those bans, like, you don't want to give up Dazzle or Keeper of the Light in the second round. And that's what, I mean, we talked about it last game, right? About how good the Keeper of the Light is on Team Secret, and they take it immediately. No hesitation this time.
Why do you think they ban away the Clockwork? Is it because they had the idea that they're going to go for Keeper of the Light, and Keeper is rather susceptible to the Clockwork? Or do you feel that maybe it's just Ohio, Ohio's a naturally good Clockwork, like he's incredibly good on that offlaner, he's a great playmaker, so they feel like they would be most threatened by a very early aggressive offlane position?
If you think about it like this, they're most likely, it's actually like a back and forth, right? This is really interesting because you ban the Clockwork because they're two top tier offlaners. It's the Tusk and the Clockwork, right?
Yeah.
The Clockwork doesn't do too well against Queen of Pain, so I think there's some merit to be said where they're hoping, you ban the Clock and then you leave something in like the Dazzle or something like that, and then you're able to go that direction. Like, I think it just frees up the draft a lot, and it gives you a premier option, because by banning the Clockwork out, it's pretty much like FNATIC has to ban, either the Tusk to give themselves like a better chance at having a more favorable offlane, or they went with the route of banning Dazzle, and so Secret gets something that they want. Either they get the Queen of Pain or they get the Tusk, so they're happy regardless.
Right. Our second set of bans now, the Witch Doctor as well as the Bounty Hunter, going to be banned away by Team Secret. FNATIC are going to take away the Viper to start things out. Now, the bans from Team Secret make a lot of sense. The Witch Doctor is pretty problematic, I would say, for any kind of grouping mechanism, such as what the Tusk brings with his snowball. And then the Bounty Hunter is kind of known, like we've seen even first pick Bounty Hunters in the Wildcard series, where Bounty Hunter does have a lot of value right now because he's an incredibly unique kind of hero playstyle-wise in the first 15 minutes. He forces the enemy team to do a lot, both in drafting and play in the first 10.
Yeah, it's just one of those heroes that also, like, going back to having like Mushi or something get a really good start.
Mm-hmm.
He's just one of those heroes that can completely turn your fortunes around and equalize everything. We've seen it time and time again, right? Bounty gets off to a good start, they just dominate because you spend so much gold trying to prevent him from doing bounty things.
Right.
Like, it's just a little bit too difficult. And FNATIC are going to pick up the Bane. I think it's just a good hero overall. It's one of the better counters to the heroes that FNATIC already have.
Why do you say, is it the defensive sleep? Is that why it's a good hero? Because I'm actually disagreeing. I just don't really see much of a point of a Bane here. He's not a very popular support hero through the meta, and the only team that really ran it successfully recently was really Cloud9.
Yeah.
I feel like it, just because that Misery's such a good Bane.
It's just one of those heroes that it prevents you from going a lot of the directions that you want to go on if you're secret. Like,
Okay.
it's just a hero that's good against, for example, mobility. Like, you can take away, like, if you're a Storm, for example, against a Bane, the Bane can just lock him down for so long. It's not
Right.
even just the fact that you can kill him using the Fiend's Grip. Like, it's a sleep timer that's just irritating. It's just
Okay.
the fact that you can potentially have a 3v5 or a 4v5 fight with Bane, right? You just max out the sleep one hero. Even if they get woken up, that's another hero. Like, you're taking somebody out of the fight, whereas you can continue to maneuver. And it's just a hero that goes through BKB, so it's always going to be warranted. The thing about the hero, though, it is very feast or famine. Like, you either get a good start and you start to roll with Bane, which
Right.
is what we saw with C9, right? That's the type of play that Misery is. But
Mhm.
if this hero doesn't have a good start, then it just almost falls off the map completely. And,
Bloodseeker now picked up. You talk about neutralizing a hero, which is something that Bane does quite well with both his sleep and his Fiend's Grip. Now you've got another sort of neutralizing ability with the Rupture from Bloodseeker. This is very interesting as well because we have now a third core on the table or a potential greedy 4-position Bloodseeker. There is the reason I say there's a possibility that it's a core because FNATIC can run something aggressively here, right? And leave Gyrocopter like safe lane solo, or sorry, Bloodseeker safe lane solo, and run an aggro tribe with Gyro.
yeah, I think actually the Bloodseeker is going to be... I really feel like it should be a Mushi hero because it's one of those heroes I feel like just has the potential to snowball so hard.
Mhm.
Like, I think he wants to be in a position where the game rests on his shoulders. I think he's kind of unique in this day and age in that regard. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of teams like to play the team aspect angle, but I feel like Mushi's still one of those players that wants the game on, his performance a lot.
Right.
And so I feel like, and Bloodseeker almost perfectly fits that bill. And so I think that I would like to see him on that. I do like Secret's pick so far, though. Like, they've got heroes that they're pretty iconic for in this patch, right? And so they
And I think they have also left their draft very open-ended.
Yes.
Like, you could go anything for your last two. But that being said, there is slight downside. It is so open-ended because of the fact that your first three are facilitators. They aren't necessarily damage dealers in themselves. Even Tusk as a core position, I would say, is more of a facilitator for other people to do work rather than him, carrying the game himself. So I feel like there is a lack of power coming from these first three pickups, and this leaves a lot of the damage being focused on the last two, which I do feel like FNATIC with the sort of idea between the 3-4, like being able to have neutralizers, essentially the Bane and the Bloodseeker, particularly the Bane. I mean, if you're only dealing with two primary sources of damage, two heroes that you really need to focus down, and Bane is already able to take out one of them, FNATIC could be in a very good position in that regard.
Yeah, and again, we are seeing it again too, by the way, the counters, like, if you can't get Viper, how often have we seen this? Like, I think the last, 3 games we've casted, you don't get the Viper, you take the Razor. They're just game-winning heroes. Like, they're not the most fun, they're not really too flashy, but, I mean, they win you games, they're very solid. They're just it's just a lane-dominating hero. Like, you can't really go wrong with a Viper or a Razor. Because A, they're really tanky, B, they harass out better than any hero, and I'm pretty sure that's an S4 Razor. I think they're thinking the same thing I am. It's going to be the Bloodseeker mid. What beats that? Not a lot of heroes can just outright harass him, so just steal his damage. And even if you put the Queen of Pain mid, the Razor should be able to win.
Right, so you're kind of guaranteeing that the mid lane is one. Razor, like going into the mid to late game, is a pretty good counter versus both the Bloodseeker and the Gyrocopter. Bloodseeker's a melee hero, so naturally you're going to have some advantage there, though not as much as you would have over many other melees because Bloodseeker's super fast. But the Gyrocopter as well. The Gyrocopter stealing away his damage, especially like early on when he has just some stats in BKB. His physical damage is a little bit limited, but it also can do a decent amount of impact with that flat cannon. If you take away, say, 20 damage away from the Gyrocopter before the first flat cannon shot, you've taken not just 20 damage away from him, but 100 damage, right? Because he's hoping to be able to hit 5 heroes with that flat cannon shot. So I think that's sort of the way that flat cannon amplifies the physical damage you have already. So too does Razor really negate that advantage quite easily. Now, the Undying was the last pickup. I love that. A lot of team fight, especially since you already had some good holding heroes with the Bane and the Bloodseeker, so the Tombstone is very powerful here. But Team Secret are now going to go for the Clinks, which is going to be a very nice single target focused hero that I think is actually good versus almost all of these heroes on the side of FNATIC. I think it's particularly strong against the cores of both Gyrocopter and Bloodseeker.
Yeah. Did you see the hero I was hovering over before they picked it?
No.
Oh, I hovered over the Weaver because I thought if you're Secret, I just forget about heroes sometimes. If you're Secret, what do you need as your last hero? Like, considering what you already have. You need a hero that can hit high ground. Like, you just need heroes that can hit buildings. Like, I think we were talking about it at the end of the C9 game. It's like, Ember's a good hero, sure. So is Gyrocopter, but neither of them are the heroes that you want to send in the front lines to just hit buildings.
Particularly Ember Spirit. He doesn't hit buildings ever. He sits in the back and slides that fists you every single time, but he can't actually get up and take out those buildings for you. But yeah. Clinks certainly can, because Clinks is, first of all, a lot of physical damage, a lot of single target focus, both when it comes to heroes as well as buildings. In fact, you could say so more so for buildings than anything else. But is also quite tanky, thanks to Death Pact. When you are the one controlling when the team fights are happening, Clinks is actually decently tanky because you're obviously going to work that push in with your Death Pact timing.
Yeah, I think that's completely true overall, and so. Both teams, I mean, it doesn't look like they're heading into each other or anything like that. I think that they're just scouting out. Judging by the item builds, it's actually possible that they decide that, maybe not. They could just try to get aggressive early on if they anticipate the Undying to be the dual offlane. Right. I think it'll be, yeah, because Ohio's already in position. That means Mushi's quad mid. Okay. It had to be one of those two, I guess. They'll probably do then Undying plus Bloodseeker offlane, and you probably want to dodge that because the Gyro plus Bane is a lot more easy to deal with, I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, generally speaking, you just don't want to fight into the Undying at all, but if you manage to, yes, you successfully dodge it in the first minute, say, you manage to get a single offlaner up against the dual aggression of the Undying +1. But then the Undying just rotates bottom lane. Aren't you stuck in a bad position at that point? Because now you're faced tri-lane versus tri-lane, and then you are then the one forced to rotate.
But you still want them to react to you more than anything. But I think this is some weird tricky game because both teams are reading each other before anything actually happens. Like FNATIC is going for the counterplay, and then they get counterplayed because it's a little bit too obvious. So now Secret is going to, it's just like a back and forth mind game because you originally saw the Undying at top, right? Because they might have anticipated some sort of dueling. So now you're going to see the TPs. Now that you force FNATIC down, then you force yourself down because you can't just leave Arteezy in a situation where he's one-on-one.
He's going to be kind of caught here. Actually turns around to go for one of the last right clicks on a creep in order to heal himself up. But the last right click from Arteezy isn't quite enough. Zai does have another Ice Shards coming up in a second, but he just runs down the Bloodseeker, who actually kind of slowed himself down by running into those trees. And Zai is the one to pick up the first blood. So unfortunately for FNATIC, it seems like them forcing Arteezy to rotate actually turns out quite well for Secret.
It was so unlucky for Ohio. He had the Blood Rage on him. Oh, and they're actually going to go on him again. And is he blocked off from this?
The creeps are blocking him quite heavily. Zai's trying to get in front of him as well, but Ohio will live. Seems that poor man's shield does do a decent amount of work. Johnny's going to pass over his potion, so Ohio stays in lane for the time being. And now Johnny's going to try and help out this Bloodseeker by harassing Arteezy down a bit.
This is so miserable for Clinks against an Undying because you already have such a terrible HP pool to begin with. So losing your strength, like 17 minus 4, he's already at 378 HP.
At the